disregarding the separation of powers, devolving American democracy into authoritarianism by unconstitutionally usurping Congress's power to declare war. In his conduct of the office of President of the United States, Donald J. Trump, in violation of his constitutional oath, faithfully to execute the office of President of the United States, and to the best of his ability, preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution of the United States, and in violation of his constitutional duty to take care that the laws be faithfully executed, abused the powers of the presidency when he disregarded the doctrine of separation of powers by usurping Congress's power to declare war and ordered the United States military to bomb another country without the constitutionally mandated congressional authorization or notice to Congress. Cognizant of the fact that should another country's military bomb a facility within the United States of America, it would be a de facto declaration of war against the United States of America. On June 12, 2025, the State of Israel initiated attacks on Iran, ostensibly to target sites and individuals of importance to Iran's nuclear program. Iran retaliated, and the conflict has escalated between Israel and Iran, though at no point did Iran pose any imminent threat to the United States. On June 21, 2025, President Trump announced successful attacks on 3 nuclear sites in Iran: Fordow, Natanz, and Isfahan, via his social media network, Truth Social. President Trump has failed to seek prior congressionally mandated authorization for the use of military force. Congressional leaders were not appropriately briefed or notified of the attack plans, despite foreign leaders being given advance notice of the planned U.S. military action. President Trump's unilateral, unprovoked use of force without congressional authorization or notice constitutes an abuse of power when there was no imminent threat to the United States, which facilitates the devolution of American democracy into authoritarianism, with an authoritarian president who has instigated an attack on the United States Capitol, denied persons due process of the law, and called for the impeachment of federal judges who ruled against him, making Donald J. Trump a threat to American democracy. Article 1, Section 8, Clause 11 of the United States Constitution grants Congress the sole power to declare war. Quote, "The Congress shall have the power to declare war." end quote. At the time, the framers of the Constitution emphasized the goal of limiting the monarchical power of any single individual person to take a country to war over personal whims and preferences. No constitutional exception exists for a successful military action. In starting his illegal and unconstitutional war with Iran, without the constitutionally mandated consent of Congress or appropriate notice to Congress, President Trump acted in direct violation of the War Powers Clause of the Constitution. President Trump has devolved and continues to devolve American democracy into authoritarianism by disregarding the separation of powers and now usurping congressional war powers. In all this, Donald J. Trump has abused the powers of the presidency in a manner contrary to his trust as president, has become a threat to American democracy, subverted our constitutional government, and devolved democracy into authoritarianism, to the great prejudice of the cause of law and justice, and to the manifest injury of the people of the United States. Wherefore, Donald J. Trump, by such conduct, warrants impeachment and trial and removal from office. I yield back the balance of my time.
Under Rule 9, a resolution offered from the...
All right, guys, so you have it. Breaking news right here on the Fox 5 Live Zone. Texas Democrat Congressman Al Green now calling for the impeachment of President Trump, stating the president used force without congressional approval. The congressman also stating that President Trump is a, quote, threat to American democracy. Joining us now to discuss this and so much more is Mr. Arif Halaby. Of course, you can hear him on AM 780, political strategist, joining us right now on the Live Zone. Mr. Halaby, I'm curious, your response to the congressman calling for the impeachment of President Trump.
Yeah, well, this is my shocked face, Guy. 4 months ago, as soon as President Trump was inaugurated, he started calling for the impeachment. He's been a congressman since 2005. President Obama had over 100 strikes without any congressional approval, killing American citizens, by the way, actually putting out more bombs, more disheartened American policy throughout the Middle East. In fact, many Americans really disagreed with President Obama, and Al Green was silent. So he's not a serious person. Nobody takes him seriously. He was the one that was kicked out during President Trump's speech in the House. He's just a person that likes the attention. Guy, I don't know.
So, Arif, we know that now that he's called for the impeachment, what happens next is this initiates a formal process, not a removal from office. From there, the House of Representatives will actually vote as to whether or not they plan to impeach the president, meaning they will formally charge the president with wrongdoing. If that happens, we now know that, well, the House will actually move that forward to the Senate. The Senate will hold a trial to determine whether or not to convict and or remove the president from office. Yet again, I want to make sure I'm clear here with regard to your stance on this. You do not think that will happen.
It's not even going to get past the round file we call trash can. This is something that's more really blustering and most likely for fundraising. Al Green has been a congressman for 20 years. I mean, you understand, he just said nothing when President Obama was drone killing. When I say over 100 people, 100 attacks, killing hundreds of people, nobody said anything on the Democrat side. I'm not saying it's right or it's wrong, but today they're talking about a Nobel Peace Prize for President Trump if this ceasefire holds, and nobody said that about President Obama when he was bombing over 100 targets with drone strikes. He was the most effective killing machine, believe it or not, was the President Obama drone strikes during his tenure. I'm not saying they were right or wrong. Each one has to stand on its own merit. My point is, let's have some consistency and less hypocrisy, Guy.
Arif, in just about a minute or so, I got to take this live press conference by House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries. It surrounds 3 years of the Dobbs decision. Before we do that, while I have you, your latest take with regard to the chaos, if you will, that continues to unfold in the Middle East between Iran and Israel.
Look, I can tell you this. I don't expect there to be zero fighting going forward. They hate each other. Unsure why Iran hates Israel so much. There's lots of speculation in the past, but I can tell you this. Ultimately, if this ceasefire holds, look, Israel has zero reason to go after Iran right now. They are less than half of their ballistic missiles are still in place, right around 1,000. We need to keep Iran in check, but they also need to have the ability to defend themselves as a nation. So if we wipe out too much of their air force, if Israel kills too many of their leadership, I think you're going to end up with a place that is in disarray. And I'm hopeful that's why President Trump took this action, was to actually keep the Iranian regime in place. I don't know if that was his reason, but I think that will be the impact. And ultimately, I think this is going to hold.
For now, we'll have to leave it there. Yet again, Arif Halaby, AM 780, and political strategist joining us right here on the Live Zone. Truly appreciate your time, sir. I should also make mention we will revisit this topic at 1 p.m. Eastern right here on the Live Zone. Going to take you now to Capitol Hill, where House Democratic leadership, the Reproductive Freedom Caucus and the Democratic Women's Caucus, now holding a press conference that marks 3 years since the Dobbs decision, which stripped millions of Americans of their personal autonomy. Let's take a listen in.
In this extremist march towards an abortion ban. And what is that really? A nation of forced birth. A nation of forced birth, while Republicans seek to deny Medicaid and health care when 40% of births are covered through Medicaid. A nation of forced birth when there is already a Black maternal morbidity crisis. My grandmother, my father's mother, died in the 1950s giving birth to my father's youngest brother. And in 2025, we still see that Black women are still 3 to 4 times more likely to die in childbirth or post-birthing complications. A nation of forced birth without universal child care or paid leave. And an administration that's hostile towards the women of this country and working actively to degrade Head Start. A nation of forced birth. 3 years ago, I was in the bleachers at our daughter's 8th grade graduation, filled with immense pride and hope at this milestone that she had achieved. And while at that graduation, learned in real time that Roe had been struck down. And I was immediately filled with dread and a heaviness, sobered by the fact that my daughter would be going to sleep with fewer rights than she woke up with that morning. In the 3 years since, we have heard horrific testimony in this climate of the criminalization of patients, providers, and prescribers, and their loved ones who have been denied care, denied their dignity, and even robbed of their lives. Reproductive freedom, abortion care, health care. This is an issue of consequence to millions in this country. Many have been directly impacted. Lives have been lost, and more will continue to be. Amber Thurman was a 28-year-old mother and a medical assistant. She sought medical care out of state due to an abortion ban, and when she needed follow-up care, she was turned away. A DNC, a standard medical procedure, was discussed and deferred. Amber died on a hospital gurney, leaving behind her 5-year-old son. Adriana Smith was a 30-year-old mom to a vibrant 6-year-old and nurse at Emory Hospital. She was sent home from the hospital without the care she needed. She woke up gasping for air, arrived at the hospital, and shortly thereafter was declared brain dead. The blood clots the doctors had missed had claimed her life. To be a Black woman in America navigating our healthcare system so often means to have your pain dismissed, delegitimized, denied, to be gaslit by the healthcare system. Not only was Adriana's pain dismissed and her son robbed of his mother, but all of this is because of an extreme abortion ban in Georgia. The hospital stated that they could not take her off of life support. And because she was 9 weeks pregnant when she was declared brain dead, about a month past a missed period, the hospital would not allow Adriana's family to make sensitive end-of-life medical decisions for her, and the hospital made her body an incubator. This week, baby Chance posthumously came into this world by emergency C-section and remains in the NICU. Adriana's family was finally able to lay her to rest and pick up the pieces as they navigate their deep grief. These stories are chilling, and you'll hear many more of them as there are abortion storytellers challenging all of us to sit in the discomfort so that we never grow complacent or wane in this fight. My daughter asked me 3 years ago, why do you always say when we fight?
What are they afraid of? Why won't they engage Congress in the critical details? The results of the recent strike, the scope and trajectory of the conflict, the administration's long-term strategy to prevent Iran from obtaining nuclear weapons, the potential risks facing American citizens and our service members, who we all have an obligation to protect. To be abundantly clear, neither Pete Hegseth nor Marco Rubio was scheduled to attend this hearing. If Rubio and Hegseth want to come up, I don't think they'll be informing us of very much compared to the people who will be there today. But if they want to come up on Thursday, in addition, not in replacement of this hearing, that's okay. But the obstruction of this administration on a crucial issue like this, where American lives, and particularly the lives of American service members, are at stake, is their obligation. And it undermines the very principles of accountability and oversight that safeguard our democracy.
Now, can you explain for just a moment here in terms of the briefers who you wanted? So people wanted Hegseth and others, but these are high-level people who were scheduled to come.
We don't care. I think Hegseth is probably just going to give us talking points. But General Kane is scheduled to come. He probably knows more about the military operations, both now and in the future, than anybody. There were good people from the State Department who knew all of the diplomatic stuff. We want to hear them. Yes.
Since the attack, and what is your understanding of the extent of the damage done to the nuclear capabilities of Iran?
Look, I don't want to get involved in classified information, but the Congress, in a classified hearing, is entitled to know how much of this nuclear material was destroyed, how much escaped, etc. And in terms of my briefing, well, you remember what happened Saturday night. About an hour before, or an hour and a half before the action, we didn't know the exact time the action occurred, but shortly before the action occurred, or during it, we're not sure which, they called me up and said, we're taking imminent action. We can't tell you what country. I said, can you give me some details? They said, no. That's the extent of the briefing I've gotten. I've asked for a briefing. I asked for a briefing yesterday. Didn't get it.
Does that make you feel that a war powers resolution is necessary as soon as possible? And also, how would you respond to the Speaker's claim that a war powers resolution may be unconstitutional?
Well, I do believe the Speaker is very wrong. It is not unconstitutional. And second, it's all the more reason we need the War Powers Act, where they'd have a legal obligation to tell the Congress the details they're now avoiding to tell us. And again, they're ducking, they're bobbing, they're weaving. What have they got to hide? Why aren't they informing their legal obligation, fulfilling their legal obligation to come and tell the Congress what's going on? What have they had to hide? Thank you.
What explanation were you given for this delay? Did the administration...
They said, just to answer this final question, we were not given, I was given no explanation for this delay. I don't know what Senator Thune was, but they said, well, Hegseth and Rubio will be here Thursday. We're happy to hear them on Thursday in addition to this briefing, which we think will be far more valuable than hearing from Hegseth and Rubio, who are secretaries and top people and are very good at political talking points. We need facts. We need real information.
Did they offer to reschedule?
There you have it. Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer, heaping mad, if you will, outrage, stating he has yet to be briefed with regard to the bombing that took place in Iran. This coming minutes after Houston, Texas, or Congressman Al Green making reference to actually impeach President Trump. We're going to take you now back to the 3-year resolution, if you will, surrounding the Dobbs decision, as the House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries is flanked by a number of lawmakers. Let's take a listen in.
But right now, I am incredibly concerned about what will happen in New Mexico's rural areas and in rural districts across our country, because Republicans' attack on Planned Parenthood and Medicaid would gut access to women's health care everywhere. Remember, 56% of Planned Parenthood centers are in rural areas, and these are healthcare deserts. You can't proclaim to be pro-life when your policies would risk the lives of women. The bad billionaires bill will kill 52,000 people, including many women who are having complications from pregnancy. The Democratic Women's Caucus stands with women and reproductive freedom and with women's right to both decide and to live without fear. I'm grateful to my Democratic Women's Caucus members, those here, Chu, Presley, Escobar, and Frankel, and to our leadership, because they know how to prioritize health care over politics. Next, I want to recognize one of the sponsors of the Women's Health Protection Act, my hermana, Representative Escobar.
Well, good afternoon, everyone, and I want to thank the Democratic Women's Caucus chairwoman. I want to also thank and extend my appreciation to my co-chairs, and I especially want to thank House Democratic leadership. They have been unwavering and unrelenting in prioritizing women's health care. That's the difference between our leadership and their leadership. I also want to take this moment to recognize the millions of American women who have lived through the consequences of Republicans' attacks on women's health care and our access to health care. I live in a state that has not only prohibited abortion, but extremist views have pushed the envelope so much that there are bounties in a state like mine for anyone who helps a woman access reproductive health care. And this is who they are. This is who is right now in control of women's bodies, and they won't stop until they have absolute control. This is a solemn day, Ayanna, as you mentioned. I'll never forget the day that the Dobbs decision leaked. The day that leaked, my office heard from active duty service member women, because I represent an incredible military installation, one of our country's premier military installations. And my office heard from active duty service members, from women who were afraid that because they were stationed in a state that absolutely would prohibit abortion and abortion care, what would happen to them? How would they deal with the consequences of this decision? And then when the Dobbs decision was actually revealed, when it actually was ruled on by the Supreme Court, when it was no longer a leak, when it was no longer what we thought would happen, when it did ultimately, legitimately become the law of the land, I heard a story from someone close to me, and it was the beginning of a number of stories that I've heard since that day. And this woman close to me shared with me her abortion story. Married, had 2 kids already. She and her husband were delighted and excited about their 3rd baby. They planned for this 3rd baby. They had a room for this 3rd baby. They had a name for their 3rd baby. And in her last trimester, she got the news that no woman who is wanting to grow her family ever wants to hear, which is that carrying this baby to full term would not only endanger the child's life, but would ensure that her 2 children would lose their mother. And she had to make the decision, and thankfully she lived somewhere where there was access, although that access was at a clinic where there were protesters frequently protesting in front of that clinic, judging and yelling at the women entering that clinic, judging and yelling at the doctors who worked in that clinic. And she could not even adequately deal with her grief of having to go through a procedure she never imagined she'd have to go through, all at the same time that she was being yelled at, jeered at, taunted by protesters who felt they knew better than she did. And that's who the Republican Party is today. They believe they know more and they know better than women and their doctors. And don't let them fool you. This is not about being pro-life. If they were pro-life, they wouldn't be cutting Medicaid in their reconciliation bill. And for comparison, when we had the opportunity to pass a reconciliation bill, you want to talk about pro-life? Universal pre-K, paid family and medical leave, expanded refundable child tax credit, accessible, high-quality, affordable child care. They voted against all of that. This has nothing to do with children. This has nothing to do with being pro-life. This is about controlling us. And I hope one day they hear the pain and misery they have caused innumerable women across this country, including women they purport to want to protect, like the women who are now infertile because they couldn't access abortion care in a timely manner in a state like mine. So I stand with my sisters on this day. I stand with my great leadership on this day. I stand with the American people who demand and know that we can do better, and we will. We will not stop fighting until we regain the rights that were stripped away from us. And with that, I would like to yield to a great female woman powerhouse leader in our caucus, Madam Whip, Catherine Clark.
Thank you, Veronica. We will open it up to questions, but please, we're going to take on-topic questions first. Yeah.
There's this report that was made by the conservative group Ethics and Public Policy Center that a large number of conservatives and Republican colleagues have, and some of your Republican colleagues have been backing, and that says that mifepristone is dangerous. And now it's being used kind of as a ammunition, I guess, to urge the FDA to review mifepristone. I guess I wanted to get your thoughts on how concerned are you about that report being a catalyst for the FDA to potentially review mifepristone and, add restrictions to abortion pills?
Yeah, they have been attacking science and in particular mifepristone all along. And what we have is a situation where they have said publicly, we're not pursuing a national abortion ban, which is exactly what they do every single day. And this is another step towards that goal. And we've seen it in the big ugly bill moving this week through the Senate. And we are seeing it now come up in the guise of a new report overturning a drug that has worked safely and effectively for decades. So I don't know if anyone else.
So let me say, they would be going against 20 years of practice of mifepristone in our society. The FDA did many, many studies over 20 years ago to ensure the safety of mifepristone. And in fact, it is safer than many other drugs out there. So they are just trying to invent some kind of way to undermine mifepristone so they can have, in fact, their national abortion ban. This is the one means by which women can still have an abortion safely and in the privacy of their home. And they don't like that, so they are doing everything that they can to make it unavailable, including trying to bring back this Comstock law that would prohibit the mailing of contraceptive devices.
Yeah, thank you. Yes.
Thousands of doctors right now are in the states like Florida and Texas where they feel they cannot intervene unless a woman is about to die. What is your message to those doctors right now before any change can come about, the ones that are facing this right now? What is your expectation for them and what's your message to them?
Yeah, and it's part of the crisis that we are seeing in the closing of labor and delivery rooms across the country. What we're seeing in OBGYNs choosing not to practice because they are being asked to choose between their patients and possible criminal charges for doing their jobs. And we're seeing a steep decline in medical school applications to go into these fields. So as my colleague was speaking about being pro-life, how can you say you are pro-family when you are undermining the very doctors that ensure that women can safely deliver children? And we understand how difficult it is. It's why we're seeing the lack of obstetric care really soar in states that have abortion bans or very, very tight laws around abortions. And we are creating an impossible situation for women that you are being forced to choose to have a child, then denied the health care to have that child safely. And the cruelty of this, beyond the moral outrage of it, we can't blame doctors for saying this is too hard to practice. We have to show them our support by changing the laws. And as the leader said, returning this decision to women, their families, in consultation with their doctors and their faith. Anyone else?
The answer is the Women's Health Protection Act. and we will keep introducing it until we can get it passed by the House, the Senate, and signed into law.
Michael.
Thank you, Madam Whip. Earlier this month, Southern Baptists voted to call for the reversal of the Supreme Court ruling that legalized same-sex marriage, and they cited the overturning of Roe v. Wade. In the Dobbs decision, Justice Thomas wrote that the court should reverse the error of the previous precedent, same-sex marriage, contraception, using the logic that they used to overturn Roe v. Wade and Dobbs. How concerned are you that conservatives, your Republican colleagues, will use Roe v. Wade, Dobbs to go after other hard-won rights like same-sex marriage, like contraception? What's your message to Americans out there who are concerned that Republicans are after other rights outside of reproductive freedom that you're fighting for today?
Well, I'll say this about my colleagues across the aisle. They don't hesitate to tell us exactly where they're going. And the Dobbs decision was a roadmap. So the real concerns that I have heard over whether it's same-sex marriage protections, the right to be able to have contraception in this country, and the right for IVF and other fertility treatments is very much on the agenda. And, you know, that is why this legislation is so very important. It is an important piece of saying that we are going to reassert that this is a constitutional right. And at the same time that they are attacking mifepristone and other things, while they are stripping away research into cancer, into fertility treatments, into Alzheimer's cures, where does that leave the American family? It leaves them without hope. And again, it is cruelty by design. And the threats that are embedded in the Dobbs decision are as very real and as threatening as the actual removal of abortion rights. Yes.
Thank you, Congressman. Many of your Republican colleagues, they argue and say that they are protecting life and they are not attacking women's rights. Can you just provide me a response to that statement they've constantly been making, especially considering the most recent thing that happened with Adriana Smith down in Georgia?
Yeah, they clearly have no idea what it means to be pro-woman in this country. And that if we want healthy families, you start by addressing the affordability crisis. You start by saying, let's work on getting the price of housing down. Let's make sure that you have a good public school that you can attend. Let's make sure that your child and the birth of that child, which 40% of which are covered by Medicaid, are insured. And that birth of that child does not force you into medical bankruptcy. Let's make sure that you are able, if you are a veteran, to access your benefits. And if you've worked your whole life and deserve Social Security and Medicare, that you can get that. Unlike this big ugly bill that is cutting Medicare by $500 billion. So then we start with the dismantling of women's health care. And everything from cancer screenings that are given by Planned Parenthood that they know full well, 96% of all the services Planned Parenthood offers have nothing to do with abortion, but they are in underserved communities. And they are sometimes that only preventative health care a patient can access. So on their just desire to control women, we are just seeing them dismantle everything that leads not only to success for women, but allows families to get on that first rung of the American dream. And so let's ask the question, when are they going to not only prioritize women and children, when are you going to work for the American people? And when did this become an operation here in Congress that is solely aimed at those who've already achieved great wealth and power and kicking everyone else to the curb?
Well, I think it's absolutely outrageous. That's why I brought up the case of Amanda Thurman. She lost her life because the emergency room would not do a simple procedure that could have saved her life. And she was, in fact, forced to go to another state just to even have the procedure of mifepristone. But actually, you think about all the other women whose lives could easily have been lost, especially in Texas. And I want to tell you that I went to Texas and I met a club of women that should never have been in this club, which is the club of women whose lives were endangered because the emergency room refused to take them when they had a life-threatening miscarriage. And in fact, Amanda Zawalski is one of them, but actually, I'll never forget another woman who said that her fetus was not going to live, and it was endangering her life. She went to the emergency room. She had the same story as Amanda, and she was going to be turned away. She had to call every state with a clinic that was surrounding Texas to get an appointment, finally got one in Colorado, and because she was so sick, she had to be driven for hours to Colorado in order to get her abortion. That is not saving lives. I mean, what we're talking about is we need to save lives. And by threatening her ability to have treatment in the emergency room, then we are actually saving lives.
Thank you for that question. The American people deserve to know the truth, and the truth is Republicans do not have a pro-woman agenda. They have an anti-women's agenda. Republicans are determined to jam their extreme right-wing ideology down the throats of women and the American people. Republicans are determined to enact a nationwide abortion ban that will strip away a woman's freedom to make her own reproductive health care decisions. Republicans are trying to enact the largest cut to Medicaid in American history that will hurt women, hurt children, and hurt their families. Republicans are literally trying to rip food out of the mouths of women, children, and seniors here in America by imposing the largest cut to nutritional assistance in American history. That's not a pro-woman's agenda. It's an anti-women's agenda. That's the truth to the American people. And that's why I'm so thankful for the leadership of Catherine Clark and Judy Chu, and of course, Teresa Leger Fernandez, Veronica Escobar, and Ayanna Pressley, and all of the members of the House Democratic Caucus who are standing up for reproductive freedom, standing up for women's health care, standing up for the ability of women to make their own reproductive health care decisions and access the health care that they need for the safety and well-being of themselves, our children throughout America, and our families.
Leader Jeffries, can I just have you react to the breaking news that the classified briefing on Iran has been postponed? I guess the GOP wants certain members of the cabinet there.
We'll have more to say about that later on this afternoon. But the question that the American people are asking is, why are Republicans hiding facts and the truth from America with respect to the possibility that their actions will drive us into another catastrophic war in the Middle East?
Thank you.
All right, guys, there you have it. Yet again, Democratic leadership on Capitol Hill discussing 3-year anniversary of the Dobbs decision, which stripped millions of Americans of their personal autonomy. You saw the House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries make mention of the chaos that is currently unfolding in the Middle East between Israel and Iran, stating that they will have yet again another press conference later this afternoon to discuss that. This coming on the heels of Texas Democratic Congressman Al Green calling for the impeachment of President Trump. We'll take our first break. This is the Fox 5 Live Zone. All right, guys, back here on the Fox 5 Live Zone on a Feel-Good Tuesday.
I saw your eyes, and I go, does he know what day it is today? Because that's me every day.
Oh, gosh, it's just like a blur, Annie.
Those are like your thinking eyes. You're like,
what is it? Yeah.
I do
well,
that most
if you
days.
caught it, so did you. We call this our Tuesday Talkers, thank you. Some of the stories that you are talking about at home, and of course, we are doing so right here at Fox 5. The first one up, I actually kind of believe in this. In this case, what would Americans give up for a fully paid vacation? According to a newly released study, 2 in 3 Americans say the anticipation of their next trip is as good as, if not better, than the trip itself. A whopping 68%, Andy May. A survey of 2,000 adults who traveled within the past year explored the appeal of the days leading up to the vacation. Apparently, a lot of folks say, 54% say, okay, it's great when we get there, but really, it's just leading up to the vacation that everyone gets excited about. Is that you?
No. You're not having a good enough vacation if you're more excited about the days leading up to your vacation than you are about your actual vacation. Don't get me wrong, I do get the appeal of the leading up days because you're like, okay, I gotta work hard for like 3 days, and then you're off Thursday, Friday, right? And you're like, okay, yes, because I had that like 2 weeks ago where I had the Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday off. As soon as I hit that Friday, I was like, let's go, I'm on vacation. I felt it leading up to, and also planning, you're able to plan all the fun things that you're gonna do. So I get the anticipation, but to say that it's more fun than the actual vacation itself and sitting there doing nothing, you're silly.
I agree with you. I think those folks don't know how to really vacation.
Yes, you clearly are not doing it right. You're not vacationing
Come on,
right.
guys. I am with you, though. There is nothing like, I see both sides because I think about all the things I'm going to do, all the food I'm going to eat.
Oh, all the nothing.
Oh, God, just relax. Okay, we got to get back to work.
I know, we got to get back to work. Reality check.
But then when you get there, I'm the guy that's going to really live up to it. All the excursions, any and everything. Hey, let's do another shot. Yeah, that's me.
Yep. I do that on a random Tuesday, let alone vacation. But, you know, I think the thing is this, too, when you're, like, kind of sitting around, you got to do it for the first day, right? For the first day, you got to sit, enjoy, be able to kind of peruse and see what you're doing. And then after that, you can do all the excursions. But I got to have one day where I'm at least, like, relaxed.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
What about when you return from vacation? Are you one of the types that needs a vacation day from your vacation?
Yes. I would never do it just because I'm always gonna, like, I'm the person that flies in at like 10 p.m. the night before I have to go to work the next morning. I will, because I want to soak in every last ounce of it. But basically the next day, I'm just like a hollow kind of version of myself. I kind of just get through the day and then I go home.
Yeah,
you know?
I'm with you on that one. I literally fly in the morning of, but you're getting up. When you say the next day, it's only like 2 hours for you. Yeah. Good for you. It's a hard thing to do, guys, I'm telling you. All right, so this next story, really interesting. Why the wait to eat rule? You heard about this? In this case, I'm talking about dinner. Apparently, yes, it feels uncomfortable. People hold themselves to higher standards than others when it comes to waiting to eat, feeling they should wait, but believing others don't have to. Now, this double standard stems from the psychological blind spot. We feel our own discomfort and guilt clearly, but underestimate how strongly others feel the same emotions. Is that you?
I don't know. I feel like some of this kind of has to do with like how you grew up and like your manners, I guess. So I would probably wait, but also not to the point where like your food gets cold. That was always the rule, right? You would wait. It was like 5 minutes or whatever, and if somebody's doing food didn't come, then you were able to eat it, so it was still hot, right? And then after that, I mean, I'm just gonna eat. Like, and if the person tells me to eat, I'm gonna eat. You know?
Are you an only child?
No, I have one brother, younger.
All right, I have. I'm the oldest of 4. And so when we sat down, it was kind of like, you better grab it before somebody else does.
Somebody else eats it. But I mean, to say that like other people's, like what other people do affects me, I don't give a crap what other people do. Like I literally don't.
Oh gosh, I wish I could be that way. I'm working on it anyway.
We had this
I'm working on it.
the last time too, where I'm like, I literally don't care what people think about me. I don't make decisions based on other people.
Yeah. But to your point, it is a manners thing, and it is how you grew up. I remember it was somewhat rude just to sit down and start eating. So, but to your point, my parents are going to say, well, wait till your brother arrives. If it's getting cold, you have to eat.
They said, go ahead and eat, and you're like, okay, and everybody agrees, you're chilling.
Yeah, it's just so weird. I wonder if other cultures are like that as well.
I know. I wonder. We should ask.
All right. Well, let us know. Hashtag Fox5 Live Zone. Do tell. All right. So today is a very special day, and I'm really curious to get your take.
Birthday, guy.
Because well, that's the best special day of all time, okay? In this case, it's special to me because I grew up in a time or worked in a time where this was a big deal. I don't necessarily know if it is now, and I'm curious to get your take. So it's Take Back Lunch Break Day. So a lot of people are like, what the heck are you talking about, Guy? In this case, yes, not to be confused with National Make Lunch Count Day. Polling from a Gallup poll reveals only 1 in 3 employees say they're fully engaged at work. Now, this changes when one takes a lunch break. However, during that lunch break, that's when you kind of get your sanity back. You go out, perhaps have a coffee, hang out with your coworkers that you don't like, and then find out that you actually do like them because you're outside of the workplace, so forth and so on. This was a big deal when I worked in corporate America years ago. It was like, oh my God, I can't wait for my lunch break. Now, it's a little bit different.
Well, we have like, over the course of time, like smaller breaks. Would I rather have like one big break in the middle? 100%.
Yeah.
Like, would I rather just take a whole hour off? Yeah. But I end up being on air for like 4 hours or 7 hours straight. To be completely honest, I'm on air for 7 hours straight. So it's like I get little micro breaks in between where I'll have like 10 minutes here, 20 minutes here. I don't have more than like 25 minutes off, I think.
Gosh, it's so tolling.
But what I would rather do, 100%, was to have an entire hour off to just even go and eat, because half the time they'll like throw to me and I'm like, oh, let me finish the rest of my salad that I was eating. Seriously, I eat like in between breaks. So, I mean, would I like that? Yeah. Is it realistic? Probably not.
Yeah. I remember I would try to run every errand possible on the planet during that. Initially, when I was, in my 20s, it would be maybe like a 30-minute break. And so let's say, I work in Springfield. I would try to drive to D.C., maybe go to the DMV. It was impossible.
Traffic? No.
Yeah.
Seriously. Well, the thing is, like, I think in corporate America, it's huge, right? Because you're sitting at a desk, you're sitting at a computer, you're doing all this all day long. So for you to even get up and have that hour that you can just kind of recharge mentally, I think that's way more useful than what we're doing, because I'm constantly kind of moving around.
Sure.
But then I almost want a break to sit.
Yeah.
Like, I almost want a break to just kind of sit there and just not have to, like, think or talk about anything.
Yeah.
Literally
and then
not
there
to
was,
talk.
oh gosh, can you imagine that? That would be so awful.
like
But then
an
we'd be
hour.
out of a job.
Right? Right? That's what you would
And
be.
we don't want that. We'll call this Take Our Job Back Day. Annie Mae with Tuesday Talkers right here on the Live Zone. Truly appreciate you.
All right,
All
bye.
right, guys, we'll take a quick break. We'll be right back. All right, guys, back here on the Fox 5 Live Zone. It is now 1 minute past the top of the hour. Going to take you down to the House floor. Listen in, as just minutes ago, Texas Democrat Congressman Al Green called for the impeachment of President Trump. Reaction still pouring in. We'll take a quick listen in, and then in a couple of minutes, we'll be joined with none other than Arif Hoffman to discuss the latest with regard to the Iran-Israel conflict. Let's take a listen in.
Hunger, getting an award. I mean, we need serious people working to solve real problems. And what we have is a reality TV show, White House, with a stream of consciousness press operation. And it is supported by a Republican Congress that thinks it is a debate club rather than an equal branch of government. And this Congress doesn't even debate real things. The president sent our troops to bomb another country this week. And that's not what we're here debating this week. We're debating a meaningless resolution and bills to further demonize immigrants. I mean, enough. I mean, let's try to work on something, anything that will help real people. I mean, this is not the way government is supposed to operate. It's not working. People are being hurt. And while we're having this discussion here today, this big ugly bill is winding its way through the Senate to come back here to the House. And I predict that my Republican friends, as always, they'll say, oh, I'm really concerned about the cuts in Medicaid. I'm really worried about people who will lose their health care. Yeah, no, I wish they weren't cutting SNAP so deeply. Oh, yeah, I really care about this and care about that. And then you know what they do? They come here and they cave. They get in line because they're afraid of even asking a question about what this president is doing and what this administration is advocating. We need to do so much better around here. And I have to tell you, this is ridiculous that this is what we're doing this week when there's so much happening in the world. And by the way, again, let's make sure everybody understands this. This big ugly bill that is coming here is about a tax break for billionaires. I just showed you the figures. The majority, I mean, there's more money going to billionaires than anybody else in the tax bill, and they're cutting programs like SNAP and Medicaid. It really is shameful. I reserve.
Gentleman reserves. The gentleman from Georgia is recognized.
Mr. Speaker, might I inquire as to how much time each side has remaining?
The gentleman from Georgia has 21 and a half minutes. The gentleman from Massachusetts has 8 minutes remaining.
Mr. Speaker, I don't think that the Military Construction, Veteran Affairs, and Related Agencies Appropriations Act is ridiculous. I think it's necessary. I think our veterans have earned it.
All right, yet again, you've been listening to lawmakers on the House floor discussing all legislative business. Now to a Fox 5 news alert. Both Israel and Iran agreeing to a ceasefire deal overnight, but the tentative truce could be over. President Trump says Israel and Iran violated a ceasefire he brokered. The president expressing disappointment about the continued attacks. Once on Air Force One, the president said that Israel fighter jets will turn around and won't attack Iran as he presses both sides to abide by the ceasefire. Joining us now to discuss this and so much more is Mr. A.R. Hoffman. He is a correspondent with the New York Sun and kind enough to join us right here on the Live Zone. A.R., good to see you, sir, and welcome to the show.
It's a pleasure to be with you. Happy to be here.
Let's jump into this. Let's start with the back and forth that we are all seeing unfold before our eyes, with regard to Israel and Iran. Now, despite the president's remarks that perhaps this could come to an end, perhaps it's not coming to an end, who knows right now with regard to the rhetoric that we're hearing on all sides. The question is, do you think this could potentially lead to an all-out war?
Well, I think the chances of that are a little bit less likely this morning than they were over the past week or so when I was on the ground in Tel Aviv, sheltering from rocket fire, virtually 24 hours a day. We've seen a couple dramatic developments here. The first is obviously America's involvement in the bombing of some of those highly sensitive nuclear sites in Iran, including Fordo, Isfahan, and Natanz, and then some movement here for a ceasefire. I think for the moment, both parties seem to be content, although that was a very chaotic last few hours. We saw attack on the southern city of Beersheba by Iran kill 4 people who were in a shelter but who suffered a direct hit. We saw Israel kind of in the moments before ceasefire itself striking Iranian sites. So for the moment, the president is putting all of his considerable weight behind ensuring that both sides abide by a ceasefire. But this is a very volatile situation that could explode again at any moment.
Yeah, you hit the nail right on the head with that one. We clearly heard the president drop the F-bomb earlier. Obviously very frustrated that this continues to be an issue. Do you think that at some point both sides will finally get the memo, if you will, that, hey, de-escalation, that's what the focus is, and that's what the president, at least here in America, is hoping for?
I do. You know, I think it's in both sides' interests, all right? On the one hand, Israel, I think, is largely happy with what it's managed to achieve, both against nuclear sites, also against ballistic missile capacity, as well as the upper echelon of Iran's military leadership. Those are really astonishing achievements that Israel has to feel pretty good about. On the Iranian side, I think the interest is self-preservation. Right? I mean, the regime has taken significant losses. It now needs to chart its path forward. One thing to look out for is, will there be internal unrest in Iran now that the regime has been potentially weakened? So I wouldn't be surprised if, while of course Iran continues saber-rattling, they turn their focus on ensuring that the regime itself, which has been in power for 46 years and has never been more threatened than it is this morning, manages to kind of get a grip and stay in place.
AR, obviously, we know that the U.S. struck several nuclear sites in Iran. However, the question remains, was it successful? Not only was it successful, but there's speculation as to whether or not some of the items needed in order to make a nuclear bomb were removed prior to that strike. Are you hearing anything about this?
I am. I'm hearing that by and large, that U.S. involvement was pivotal. Remember, only America has the so-called bunker-busting bombs as well as the B-2 bombers necessary to execute those strikes. Satellite images, we're seeing some of them here, show significant damage from those attacks. You know, and I think if you're Israel, you know, every day you buy that you push back Iran's effort to obtain a nuclear weapon is another day of safety and security for your citizens, right? So the question is not, can Iran be forever prevented from getting a nuclear bomb, but does this significantly slow down the mullah's timeline? And I think it does. We'll see, you know, what facilities are intact, what facilities are damaged. So we're hearing conflicting reports about whether uranium was spirited away or in fact was not taken out, evacuated, and was damaged. But I think by all accounts, Iran's nuclear project is in much worse state today than it was 12 days ago when this war began.
AR, I got about a minute left, and I want to make sure we touch on this prior to exiting, and that is, we know that initially President Trump called for the removal of the supreme leader. The White House then walked that back, if you will. Then today, the president stating that he is okay if the current regime stays in place.
No. Well, this you know, is the elephant in the room. Is this war about neutering Iran's nuclear capacity, or is there much bigger game at play, and that is regime change? The president has sent mixed signals about that, but I think that confusion is reflective of a complicated reality, namely that, you know, America's record in imposing regime change from outside has not been spectacular in recent decades, to put it mildly. So I think where America and Israel are at is creating the conditions for possible regime change by limiting the current regime's ability to damage the West. And hopefully over time, that enables Iranians themselves to achieve regime change. I'll just say, you know, some of Israel's final targets during this war were against a prison used to house dissidents and other symbolic centers of the Islamic Republic's power. And I think that was a kind of goodbye message or a departing message to say, you know, there's a potential here for a new day in Iran, and hopefully it comes sooner rather than later.
Yeah, something we are all awaiting on pins and needles with regard to if that actually happens. Yet again, we have been speaking with Mr. A.R. Hoffman, correspondent with the New York Sun, and yet again kind enough to join us right here on the Live Zone. Sir, truly appreciate your time.
Thank you so much.
All right, guys, we'll take a quick break. On the flip side of that break, we'll lighten things up a bit. Celebrity Dish with Media Prince coming up next, right here on the Live Zone. All right, guys, back here on the Fox 5 Live Zone, 1:13 now is the time. Time for a little Celebrity Dish on a Tuesday. It's going up with this guy. Yes, the Media Prince royalty joining us yet again on the Live Zone. Always good to see you, my man.
It's good to be seen. We are live in the zone.
Let's get real live. In this case, a lot of smiles. Why? We're talking Cardi B. Hey, Media Prince, she's finally, yes, finally dropping an album entitled Am I the Drama? After, count them, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 years, we finally get to see the sophomore album, the Cardi B. This has been a long time waiting. A lot of folks been chomping at the bit to hear what she has to say. What are you thinking, Media Prince?
About freaking time, okay? We have been asking for this album for not 1, not 2, not 3, not 4, not 5, but not 6, but 7 years. I mean, at this point, I thought she was just going to just give us a deluxe album after the 10-year anniversary of Invasion of Privacy, as long as she's been making us wait. But it's good to know that she is finally in her bag. I think Atlantic Records really pushed the pedal to the metal with how people were making that song Outside trend. That she just had, you know what, forget it. I'm going to put the song out, and guess what? I'm going to put the album out. And due to her doing this, she also let us know that if you already pre-saved the CD, you also get WAP and Up. So it already, along by her putting those songs on the album, she has sold over 1.5 million units of the album. So wow. Cardi B's in a really good place right now.
Yeah. I'm curious to hear some of the songs and find out if she really lashes out at Offset. We know they've had somewhat of that terrible breakup. She's now dating, the football player. He's now, let's say, trying not to jump off a cliff, and I mean he being Offset. There's a lot going on there, Media Prince.
It's a lot going on, and if you're paying attention too, currently right now, she has, her new single is called Outside, which kind of takes a little dig at Offset and even maybe Offset's mother, but you guys have to read in between the lines and get into the song, because the whole theme of it is she is done with Offset and she is outside. So I think she has created also the new anthem for the ladies this summer. So a lot of ladies are leaving their man and they're going where? Outside. So thank you, Cardi B, for messing that up for us.
Which, by the way, happens to be #1 on Apple Music as both you and I speak. All right, Media Prince, I got time for one more. So you want door number A or door number B? Pick which one.
Let's go B. Let's see what B is.
All right, well,
behind
with B, we're
everybody
talking
goes
Kendrick Lamar. In this case, yes, Kendrick Lamar, well, about to get educated, or at least that's what we're about to get, as my grandmama would say. Temple University in Philadelphia now offering a class. The course is called, well, in so many words, Kendrick Lamar, and it's going to be taught by a professor at the university who says he knows all things with regard to Kendrick Lamar. Is this something you would sign up for?
Maybe as an elective, maybe if I had like a course in music production or a music degree of some sort, I feel like this course would be very conducive with that. Similar to how I think they have a university for Beyonce. So shout out to Beyonce and Kendrick Lamar for having courses after them. I guess if you're going for that field or you want a fun elective, I think this is a great class to go to. I don't know exactly what you will be learning, because I can't put I went to Kendrick Lamar's class on my resume, but I would love to see what they're learning in those classes. And I think it'll be fun, and maybe a creative arts realm, it'll be really conducive with that. But if you are a business major or a psychology major or I don't think you need to go to that class at all, because it's not going to help you land that gig.
Yeah. I wonder if you can major in Kendrick Lamar and minor in They Not Like Us.
Here we go with Guy Lambert. You don't know what you're the modern day Johnny Cochran with these sayings now, okay?
All right, Media Prince, we'll have to leave it there. Yet again with all things Celebrity Dish. Real quick, folks that want to follow you, how could one go about to do so, Media Prince?
You can follow me everywhere at The Media Prince, and that's TheMediaPrince. And until next time, stay live in the zone.
All the way, all the time. Truly appreciate you. We'll take a quick break. Hey, on the flip side of that break, we're talking dating and matchmaking in regality. That's coming up next, right here on the Live Zone. Hey guys, back here on the Fox 5 Live Zone. Well, in this age of dating, so many of us compare what's hot and what's not by what we see on TV and the big screen. Which leads me to this: matchmaking on screen versus regality. You see, with the recently released film, The Materialists, starring Dakota Johnson, Chris Evans, the question now revolves, what's real and what's not? My next guest can offer some insight. I'm referring to 3-Day Rule matchmaking service founder Adam Cohen-Azalati, joining us yet again on the Live Zone. Adam, always good to see you, my man. Welcome back to the show.
How you doing? How you doing?
I'm doing good. I've been really excited to conduct this interview because, well, first and foremost, for our viewers, and you should already know this, but 3-Day Rule is a global leader in matchmaking and relationship wellness service. So, with that being said, let's talk about the materialists, because I got to tell you, a lot of folks are saying, oh my gosh, is this really how matchmaking and dating works in your world? To which you say, sir?
Yes, but it's overly simplified in the movie. I think that matchmaking is a service that really does work. There's a 70 to 80% success rate with matchmaking compared to dating apps, which is about 9%. But it requires work, it requires coaching, and you don't have to make a black and white decision. You can find someone who's wealthy in the case of the movie and someone who you love. You can have it all if you use matchmaking.
Yeah, one of the funny parts about the movie is I remember when one of the characters made mention that, you know, she found love and well, her counterpart, if you will, the co-star said, well, he's rich and he's attractive. He's not for you, which I just found to be so funny. And so with that being said, go ahead.
No, you know what the thing is, everyone has a list of what their requirements are, and I think when you work with a great matchmaker, and in the case of 3-Day Rule and a date coach, you get both here, you learn more about yourself, what you're looking for, and also what is required in order to have a successful relationship, because sometimes your list doesn't include everything you need, and sometimes the things on your list you actually don't need. So you work with a matchmaker, you come up with this amazing list, and we go and we hunt for you. We date for you, we hunt for you, we vet for you, we screen for you. And when you have these amazing dates, they're usually pretty damn good.
So let's talk about modern dating and what it has revealed about, let's say, our morals and values. Anything you could touch on or tell us?
Yeah, look, I think that there are, you know, if I'm talking about heterosexual women, I think two of the biggest things that heterosexual women are looking for: high income and high height. Ooh. Height is very important. Height's also a big part of this movie. And what I will say is less than 10% of American singles are going to be 6 foot or higher or taller. So if you're looking for someone and you really need them to be 6 foot, you're limiting yourself in terms of potential amazing matches. And short guys know they're short and they try much harder. They make up for those 2 or 3 inches in shortness by a lot more. Let me tell you, the short kings are always the winners.
Why do I feel like you're talking about me, Adam? I just, for some reason, I feel you're pointing right at me. That's so interesting that that's really the case, because yet again, if you think about it, I mean, yes, that's apparently the knight in shining armor, you know, for him to be somewhat wealthy and for him to be, I guess, tall and athletic. But there's so many of us other guys, I'm still athletic, but I'm shorter, but can still offer so much more. What's been the response of guys like me that come to you and say, you know what, okay, I'm not tall, but I got everything else?
Yeah, I think in terms of a client that's looking for someone who's 6 foot and taller, I think that's fine as a preference. And a lot of people have preferences when they're looking for love, and you should have preferences when you're looking for love. What I will say is be flexible on that, especially because you don't want to miss out on the most amazing, emotionally connected person, the person who's going to guard you, be your support, be your rock, be your provider, and all these amazing things, because he's maybe 5'10" or 5'11" or even 5'9". So just be open to the process. I think also in the case of 3-Day Rule, we have rules to dating here. And we know that if you follow our 3-Day Rule guide to successful dating, your chances of dating success go way up. So listen up, folks. If you're single and you're looking for love, it can happen for you this summer.
Yeah. All right. So we've been focusing on those who have been looking for love. If you don't mind, sir, I want to focus on you for a second. And what I mean by that is, what does your life consist of? What is it in the day of a life of a matchmaker?
Yeah, so I think matchmaking is the most rewarding and beneficial career you can have. The people that go into matchmaking, their life's passion is to get two people connected and loving each other, meeting each other, and they get off on that. The joys of helping someone else build their life is so incredibly rewarding. And what the movie shows and what actually happens at a company like 3-Day Rule, we are so invested in our client success. Every Monday, we have a Monday morning meeting call where we have over 60 dating professionals get on this call, and we talk about the dating successes, multiple dates, engagements, marriages, did they have children? And we get so excited about seeing our clients meet each other and be successful on this relationship journey. So that is very true. We also do copious amounts of vetting. I know in the movie there highlights a negative experience when you meet a match that wasn't properly vetted. You know, matchmakers go through this extensive process to find you your person, to vet for your person, to do these background checks on your person, so that when you get on a date, you don't have to worry as much as if you found someone on a dating app. Who are these people? How do I know who they are, what they do, how much money they make, all that kind of stuff. We do all that work ahead of time to make sure that when you have a date, the quality is significantly higher than if you use any type of dating app.
Yeah, we'll end with this, Adam, and that is there are some that are still somewhat skeptical. And I got to be honest with you, early on, that happened to be me. I come from a time where, let's say, when you would use somebody as a matchmaker, you were considered a loser, but that's no longer the case. Look at your success rate and look at those who now have been able to find love.
Let me tell you this, 74% of American singles say that they would try matchmaking in 2025, but only 1% have. If you want to find love, if you're serious about this, guys, go to 3dayrule.com. You can sign up into our network for free. And if you end up matching our clients' preferences, you go on amazing dates and it costs you nothing. If you want to become a client, learn about getting your own private matchmaking from 3-Day Rule, a date coach, and let's find you love this year. Let's not wait. Let's not dilly-dally. Let's not download another app and delete another app and go on these horrible dates. Invest in yourself, invest in matchmaking, and let's do this thing together.
Well said. Yet again, we have been speaking with Mr. Adam Cohen-Asalati. He is the 3-Day Rule Matchmaking Service founder and kind enough yet again to join us right here on the Live Zone. Always good to see you, my man.
You got it. Have a great day, guys.
All right, you bet. All right, guys. Yet again, you're watching the Fox 5 Live Zone. I take it we're going to pull up the latest with regard to the Democrat leadership. Yep, there we go. All right, so yet again, take you back to the House where Democratic leadership speaking on the Iran and Israel conflict. Earlier today, Democratic Congressman Al Green calling for the impeachment of President Trump. Let's take a listen in.
Strikes and go to war. And that is where representative government comes in. That is the design. That as members of Congress, we are here representing our districts and the voice of the American people. So when we have a president and an administration and now a Republican party in Congress that has decided the American people are not entitled to know anything. It is a trust us, we are doing what we're doing. You are just here to pay the taxes while we debate these things internally without your representatives involved. That is an outrage and an insult to families at home, who at this time, where 60% of American families are feeling they can't provide the basics while we are debating a GOP bill that wants to take away health care from 16 million Americans, that wants to take away food programs, strip funding from veterans' benefits. The audacity of then coming forward and saying, on top of all that, we feel that you are not entitled to the basic information around our national security and such profound decisions about whether to go to war or not. This is far beyond a briefing and what day it will be held. It is the fact that we have been demanding information on behalf of American families, of American veterans, of those who are in active duty and their families who deserve answers on what our country is committing as far as foreign action and why. Thank you.
Next. Co-chair Maggie Goodlanders.
Thank you so much. I'm really grateful to our leadership and to my colleagues who are part of this task force, which I'm really proud to be part of. I represent the live free or die state of New Hampshire here in Congress, and we've got freedom-loving patriots right here on this podium who believe deeply in our mission and our role. And what I'd say is I'm about to turn it over to Derek Tran, who, like my dad, joined the military at age 18. My dad, Ted, always said he got his education in the United States Navy, and so did I. I really did. I served 11 years as an intelligence officer in the Navy Reserve. I learned in the Navy that, and saw firsthand, that the United States of America has brutal and determined enemies all across the world, including in Iran. I saw firsthand how our patriotic service members, when they take an oath to this document, I bring my Constitution with me everywhere I go in this job because it's a useful document to have these days for questions big and small. When they take an oath to this, they mean it. And I also learned in the Navy firsthand why our framers were really smart to give Congress a central role in American national security and in matters of war and peace, because there are no more consequential decisions than can be made. What we see today is an administration that is completely ignoring the role of Congress in matters of war and peace, and it's having real consequences. It's been said, we just came back. I was pounding the pavement all across New Hampshire. I heard from the families of service members who are asking basic questions that this administration should be answering to the American people about why we went ahead and conducted a military strike without congressional authorization, what the impact of that strike was. What damage did it do to Iran's nuclear program and their nuclear industrial base? And what is the plan now? This is why Congress has got a role in questions of war and peace, and why this administration is going to have to answer to us. I'm really proud to be in this effort alongside all of you, and delighted to turn it over to my colleague and Army veteran, I'll allow it, go Navy, Derek Tran.
Thank you so much, Rep. Goodlander. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for coming, and thank you especially to my colleagues with whom I am so proud to stand shoulder to shoulder with. I joined the Army Reserves when I was 18 years old. I walked into that recruitment office because I was committed to giving back to the country that has given me so much. My parents fled a communist dictatorship and came to the United States seeking the freedom and democracy that define the core of our national values. I brought that background with me to Congress, and I'm so proud to lend my voice as a leader of the House Democratic Caucus on the National Security Task Force. Just this week, we learned in terrifying detail just how important our voices are at this critical moment. Iran and its proxies pose a serious threat to our nation, and American people are looking for measured, steady leadership to protect our national security. They're not seeing it from President Trump. They're not seeing it from congressional Republicans who refuse to hold this president accountable. I am proud to stand with my colleagues today to urge a stronger, more stable approach to our national security. We are committed to keeping our service members safe. We are committed to protecting U.S. global leadership, and we don't want our country dragged into another reckless war. It is critical that we exhaust all diplomatic options to de-escalate this conflict because we do not want more of our soldiers put in harm's way. The United States has been the sole global superpower for decades, not only because of our military might, but because of our values, our adherence to the Constitution, and our respect to the rule of law. We're here today because we refuse to stand by while this legacy is under threat. Thank you so much, and I'm going to turn it back to our chairman for questions.
Thank you, Derek. Thank you, colleagues. Questions? Nick?
Congressman Al Green's impeachment resolution is coming up on the floor. Do you expect Democratic leadership to
I anticipate that Democrats will vote to table this, and I'll be among them voting to table it, yeah.
You mentioned at the top, Chairman, that Donald Trump wants to get the bill on his desk by July 4th so that he can celebrate Independence Day by throwing 16 million people off their health insurance. How will House Democrats, you all have done days of action during recesses, you've held press conferences, had different types of events. As this thing gets closer to the Senate taking it up and potentially coming back to the House, what can Americans expect to see from House Democrats as this gets down to the wire on pushing back against the SNAP cuts, the Medicaid cuts, within the context of this Iran-Israel conflict? You all are balancing a lot of different kind of walking and chewing gum at the same time. What can folks expect in this fight against the bill as it comes back?
All of this is, as my colleague said, all of this is about the American people. You know, their safety and security is front of mind, whether it's keeping them out of harm's way protecting their national security or looking out for their health and safety. All of that fits within the same theme, and that is the focus of House Democrats, is how do we make lives better for folks in our community. But we're not going to be distracted. We're not going to take our eye off the ball. The Senate is going to do whatever the Senate has to do, but we know that this bill is coming back at some point. We can't control when that happens, but as we get closer to that, we will use our voices and we will be very clear with the American public, guided by, and this shocks our Republican colleagues, guided by the facts, guided by the CBO saying this is going to kick 16 million people off of their health insurance, guided by the nonpartisan analysis that says this is going to put a $4 trillion hole in the deficit. Those are things that House Democrats will continue to amplify. And what that means to folks in our community is this means people are going to lose their health care. This means hospitals are going to close. That's what's at stake, and House Democrats are going to continue to use every tool we can. If we're here over the next intervening days or whatever that holds, we're going to make our voices heard back home and across this country using our voices and getting the word out. Vice Chair Lee?
So, again, this big, ugly bill is the largest health care cut in U.S. history. And according to the facts, as Chairman Aguilar laid them out, 16 million people are going to lose their health care. And why? Why are we doing this? Tax breaks for billionaires. That's literally what the bill does. And the more the American people find out about the bill, the more they dislike it. Even now, this bill is 21 points under water, a shockingly low result, only matched by Donald Trump's polling approval, which the latest AP poll had him at 21 points underwater, with 60% disapproving of Trump's job performance. So what Trump Republicans are doing is not popular, and the more the American people find out, the more they dislike it.
Thank you. As far as the briefing on Iran that was supposed to be this afternoon, could you just walk us through any conversations that you've had with Republican leadership about this briefing and why they say it was canceled, whether there's any plans to hold it on a date in the future?
I don't have anything that isn't public. I read it on X as well, just like everybody else. I assume that this will come up in the next few days, but I find it incredibly frustrating and difficult that we can't get the answers to our questions. Are our service members in harm's way? Was this a successful mission? Where is the enriched uranium? These are all fairly straightforward questions, and Congress deserves answers. This isn't a partisan issue. I hope we get answers to those questions. We have no idea on the timing. Representative Crow?
I think it's really important to underscore that the president, any president, has self-defense authority under Article 2 of the Constitution, but to meet that threshold, you have to show that there is an imminent risk of attack against Americans or U.S. facilities. That's the standard. As a member of the Armed Services Committee and the House Intelligence Committee, I have not seen any evidence leading up to the attack that there was an imminent risk to Americans or to U.S. facilities to meet that threshold. So the administration has to answer for that. And that's why it's really important we get answers quickly, because this is the type of situation that could spin out of control very rapidly.
Just to follow up on Nick's question about the impeachment motion to table today, obviously the Democrats have been very united against pushing back the big beautiful bill. Several other issues, you have shown a unified force on issues like this as it relates to impeachment. Is it unhelpful for your members to come forward and put an issue on the table like impeachment that divides the caucus?
Members are going to represent their constituents and their communities. Members have gone back home. They've had town halls. They've heard from their constituents. They bring back those ideas and those interests every week. That is the nature of this place. At this time, at this moment, we are focusing on what this big, ugly bill is going to do. I think anything outside of that is a distraction, because this is the most important thing that we can focus on. And so that's what we plan to do in the next days that we're here, and that's what I expect members to carry forward.
So these past couple of days, Democrats have been calling on the White House and Republicans in general to, disclose more information about these strikes. But in terms of the actual policy of the U.S. striking Iran, where does House Democratic leadership stand? What is the official stance? And also, are you guys going to be giving members talking points with regards to the policy itself?
Well, we will lean on our committees of jurisdiction, but also the Democratic Caucus National Security Task Force that you see some of the members behind us. As you saw, the War Powers Resolution introduced by ranking members Meeks, Adam Smith, and Jim Himes. Those are going to be the committees of jurisdiction that guide us on these issues. What I can tell you is, I'd just echo what Representative Crow mentioned. The president has Article 2 authority, but he needs to discuss that with us. If there is an imminent threat to the United States, the Gang of Eight needs to be read in on that. There was not a Gang of Eight meeting prior to this, prior to the bombing. So those are concerns that we have. We respect and can appreciate the separation of powers. We understand that even when the president doesn't respect Article 1, they should know that we respect Article 2. But that still means that there is a process. We need to follow that process and ensure healthy communication, especially when it comes to national security interests that affect our troops abroad. Mike?
On the War Powers question, Mr. Liu, you mentioned Syria and Obama, and those strikes, of course, happened without congressional approval. Speaker Johnson, just a few hours ago, ticked off a longer list of examples of Democratic administrations taking similar steps. Doesn't that kind of undermine your argument that, hey, look at these big bad Republicans violating the Constitution with these strikes when Democratic administrations have done similar things in the past?
Yeah. Just because it was wrong then doesn't mean it's not wrong now. The Constitution is the Constitution, and it says only Congress has the power to declare war. And it's been a bipartisan problem with Congress ceding way too much power to the executive branch. And if you look at what J.D. Vance is saying, it's pretty extreme. He's basically saying the president can take action because it deals with nuclear proliferation. Well, if you take that argument, then that would mean any U.S. president could just strike Russia or China or North Korea without congressional approval. That's just insane. And so we're reasserting Congress's role on the Constitution. And again, just read it. It's pretty clear. Only Congress has the power to declare war.
On the AUMF question and the war powers question, listen, if you give somebody a credit card, they're going to use it, right? Well, what's happened is that Congress gave the presidency, Democrat presidents and Republican presidents decades ago, a credit card, but the bill has to be paid by the American people, right? So it's actually Congress's responsibility now to step up and to take it back, right? Because it's been used and abused for too long by too many different people, right? The difference here is that House Democrats take that seriously. We're stepping up to do something about it. And in the absence of leadership by the Republicans who control the House of Representatives and the Senate, once again, House Democrats are stepping up to lead and to make the tough decisions to do the right thing so the American people don't have to foot the bill for reckless misadventures and foreign policy failures. That's the difference. But I think a lot of this discussion around war powers and authorizations for use of military force, let's not forget what we're trying to achieve here, right? House Democrats know the danger that Iran poses to the world. We know the danger that Iran poses to American troops. I know. I was in Iraq when Iran was training and equipping its militias and blowing up my units and the people that I served with. We understand that it's a state sponsor of terror and one of the more malignant regimes in the world. So we want to do something about it, but we want to do something that is permanent and is verifiable. We understand you cannot bomb your way out of this. It has to be permanent and it has to be verifiable. And that will only be done at a negotiating table when we get back to an agreement similar but different from the one that Donald Trump tore up. You can't bomb your way out of this.
Last question, PK.
I guess to follow up, though, you know, you had Democratic control in 21 and 22, and you know, there was a sort of effort at trying to do some sort of aim on that. It went nowhere. You know, do you all regret you've had moments in the past with Democratic presidents where there was an ability to do something and it didn't happen?
What we can handle is what's in front of us today. You know, we can write books and fill your column inches with regrets under this dome. We'll save that for other days. But what is in front of us today is, are we going to stand up for our constitutional authorities? Are we going to protect the role that Congress has here? Are we going to look out for American service members by asking tough questions? That's our role. And like the vice chair said, that should not just be when you disagree with the administration or when you have a different political party from the administration. If we're truly going to do the people's business here, we need to ask those tough questions, and we need to wait till the winds line up and the stars align and we can get something done. That part is unfortunate. Maybe we've missed a few opportunities, but that doesn't mean that we turn a blind eye right now. It doesn't mean that we just let Donald Trump walk all over us. It means that we stand up for our authority and speak up on behalf of our constituents at every opportunity. Thank you.
All right, guys, there you have it. Yet again, top Democrats heaping mad, crying foul, if you will, stating that they have yet to be briefed on the conflict that continues to unfold between Iran and Israel. Very interesting here. I want you to take a look to your right. The top screen, obviously, Air Force One has landed in the Netherlands. We're talking about The Hague, where President Trump any minute now will attend the NATO meeting that is currently underway. It was about a 7-hour trip in order to get there. Beneath him, that box that you see there, well, earlier today, Democratic Congressman Al Green put forth a resolution to impeach President Trump. That resolution has, they're voting as to whether or not to table it. And as you can see, for the most part, it looks like it will be tabled, hence meaning that impeachment will not move any further than the words that came out of the Democratic congressman's mouth. Yet again, we're awaiting the president to walk out of Air Force One. During the NATO meeting, he'll meet with some 32 members of the North Atlantic Treaty Organization. That's what it stands for, in essence. They're partner countries in the European Union, which is held, as it always is, in The Hague, Netherlands. This is going to take place over the next 2 days. The question is, will the president remain there for that entire time? Obviously, we know that he has left previous meetings in the past, particularly surrounding the issue between Israel and Iran, when that became an issue as well. We're going to continue to monitor when President Trump will emerge from Air Force One and yet again make his way down those stairs, then into, we expect, a limousine to then take him to The Hague, where other world leaders have been arriving throughout the afternoon. This is the Fox 5 Live Zone. All right, there you have it. Yet again, President Trump exiting Air Force One, making his way into the limousine, the Beast as we call it, and now off to The Hague. He'll meet with 32 other world leaders. Obviously, the NATO summit currently underway. It's going to be interesting to see what the president has to say with all things surrounding Iran and, well, Israel. Yet again, we know the president heaping mad earlier today, dropping the F-bomb, stating the two countries need to get their act together. We'll continue to monitor this and see if the president has anything to say once he arrives at the actual summit. This is the Fox 5 Live Zone. We'll be right back. All right, guys, back here on the Fox 5 Live Zone. You're taking a live look at me, but in just a second, there we go. Air Force One officially arriving in the Netherlands after departing earlier this morning, a 7-hour flight in all. The president arriving. It was really interesting. Upon his arrival on the House floor, it was a resolution as to whether or not to impeach the president. That brought forth by Democratic Congressman Al Green. Obviously, they were voting to table that resolution, and at last check, it appears that's exactly what will actually happen. Had that moved forward, it would have initiated a formal process not in essence to remove the president from office, but just to review it. The House of Representatives would then vote on to impeach the president or not, meaning the formal charge. Well, they would have to take a look at that and see if that's what happened. In this case, if that did happen, it would then move to the Senate, and the Senate would hold a trial to determine whether or not to convict and remove the president from office. Yet again, it appears that is not going to happen, as the majority of votes have decided not to move forward. That will just about do it for us, guys. We thank you so much for watching the Fox 5 Live Zone. Obviously, the president is now attending the NATO summit. We'll have continuous coverage throughout the afternoon. If you haven't already done so, make sure you download the Fox Local app. That way you can have up-to-the-minute coverage with regard to what's happening with Israel and Iran, not to mention the hot forecast that continues to wreak havoc on the nation's capital. I'm Guy Lambert. We'll see you tomorrow at 12.